Welcome to Weekly Ways to Better Days, the podcast. This week, we have our guest, Heather, and we are talking about breaking the generational curse. So, in this episode, we are discussing coming from homes with narcissistic parents, overcoming having our own narcissistic traits, right? Because you take on the characteristics of your parents and becoming better, breaking the generational curses that have plagued our families for a long time. And I think you are going to find a lot of benefit in this. We speak about how you can overcome it and do better yourself. So I want to say thank you for Heather in joining us on this episode. And I hope that you enjoy it and find a lot of inspiration in your own life. Have a wonderful day.
Yay.
All righty. So welcome, Heather. I have had you on before, but I didn't allow yourself to introduce yourself. So let's go ahead and do that first. Kind of maybe tell people a little bit about yourself.
And I'm totally okay with that. But I am Heather, and I am a mom. I have 6 children. I'm a wife, and I also am a corporate supervisor for a major medical company here in Michigan. And outside of that, I am me. I do whatever my heart feels led to that hour, that minute, that day. I'm just kind of fly by the seat of my pants, and I like it.
I love it. I love it. I feel like that's how life is supposed to be, right? Like not so rigid and structured. I mean, you have to have some structure, but let's let life kind of guide us.
Yeah. I mean, outside of like work hours, my actual job, I don't have much of a schedule. I just kind of go with the flow.
I love
It's better than being like do, and just kind of go with it.
Yeah, I agree. I did, and burnt out.
Exactly. And that's how that happens. And I've noticed like with anxiety, because anxiety is something that I've struggled with, it is helpful because a lot of my anxiety was, okay, I've got a laundry list of shit to do and I got to get it done. Now I'm just like, you know what? There's no more laundry list. And if I get to it, I get to it.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So today, our topic of interest is narcissistic parents, which I'm familiar with. So
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about that. What would you like to say about that?
There is a lot that goes into that. There is a lot that goes into it. And I think that when you grow up with it, it just kind of, it gets, it can get better as you get older because you become aware of what's actually happening. Because I think for me, when I was smaller, I wasn't, I just thought that was love. I didn't even realize what was going on. But as you get older, you're like, oh, that doesn't feel right to me. That doesn't feel right. It doesn't look right. And then you have this, epiphany, like, holy shit, he or she has been doing this my entire life. And it never felt wrong until now.
Yeah. So do you want to go into like a little bit of detail about what that looked like as a child and even now maybe?
So with my mom, it's always been a very, it's just always been very heavy with her. It's always been, and it still is. It still is. And I have had to learn how to accept that trait about her. I can accept it and, work with it as best as I can, no matter what that looks like. Right now, it looks like a existent relationship. And that's just, and I'm okay with that. I can still love her as my mom, and I absolutely do. And look at her in love, because I understand the things that she's been through. She didn't have the best childhood. Not at all. Not at all. I wouldn't wish her childhood on anybody. Um, I still get angry with her sometimes, because I feel like at a certain age, you realize the things that maybe haven't worked for you. I have four other siblings, right? And most of us, the ones that, can have an opinion, um, realize, like, we don't really want to gravitate towards her. So you would think that she would have this epiphany of, well, none of my kids or most of my children don't want that relationship with me. I must be doing something wrong. And then when you bring it to her attention, like, okay, this is what I need from you, and she deliberately doesn't do that. She'll do the opposite, what she's always done. I mean, once you're aware that there's a problem or there's an issue, one would think that you would want to fix that and work on it to be the best mom that you can be. But for a narcissistic parent, most, I won't say all, but most can't make that navigational change.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny because it's like that literally is what a narcissist does, right? You're like, you bring something to their attention and somehow they like flip it on to you, like you're the problem, right? Like, I mean, that was my relationship with my biological father for sure. I mean, he was definitely a narcissist, and anytime I mean, I have always been like the black sheep. I have always been the one that like stood up for myself. So, I mean, he was a hot mess. So I'm like calling him out. I'm like, yeah, no, we can't, like, I'm like in third grade and I'm like, yeah, we can't come hang out with you because like you're not paying child support. Like, or I'm like the one who like told his girlfriend when I was like literally in third grade, yeah, he's been to jail because he doesn't pay child support and he does drugs. And like he was like so mad at me, right? Because I totally like burst his bubble. But anytime I did something like where I pointed out he was wrong, it was like he would turn it on me, like I was such a bad person or whatnot. And so it's so interesting because it's like you would think that when your children are like, okay, I don't want to talk to you, like what's wrong with me? But that's not what a narcissist, that's not the way their brain works. They still think there's something, well, there must be wrong with four other people rather than me. Like I'm not the common denominator, you know? Which is like, it's fascinating. It's a very interesting, I think, as a child to navigate. Do you have any particular experiences that really stand out, or like even overall experiences that really like stand out to you as a child standpoint?
I have so many. And one that there's a few that stick out where I needed some extra help in school. I was in middle school. I was going through things that just were big for me. I didn't like who my mom was with. I never liked who my mom chose to be with because they were all assholes. And I felt like she just jumped in relationship after relationship. And she did. She really did. But it was uncomfortable. It was just so uncomfortable. And I was just having trouble learning. I was having trouble concentrating. Classic ADHD symptoms, and I'm still undiagnosed, but I promise you it's there. And I kept telling her, like, Mom, I'm trying so hard. I'm trying so hard in school. I want to do good in school, but I need extra help. And even the school counselors went to her and was like, listen, she's such a good person. She is such a good student. We really want to help her. And they were trying so hard. There were so many people in that school, the counselors and therapists and stuff, that really loved me, and they knew what was going on in my home,
Mhm.
and they knew how bad I wanted to do good, but it was so hard for me to do good. And they were like, we probably should do some testing to make sure that there's not any underlying diagnosis, that we could help you, along the way. We just need these diagnoses. And they came to my mom with that, and she was like, are you fucking kidding me? She's not stupid. She's not, you know, she doesn't have disabilities. There's nothing wrong with her. She just doesn't apply herself. She that was hurtful. That was hurtful.
Yeah.
She doesn't, you know, for her to hear her say, you don't apply yourself. You don't try hard enough. You don't do this, this, and this. That was hard. I think that was the biggest. I just, even if there wasn't anything wrong, or there wasn't any underlying diagnoses that we could gather, and she never wanted to put me in counseling. She never wanted to put me in therapy. And I think I realize now why, she didn't want to be exposed for a lot of the shit that was going on.
Right.
Um, and so even if none of that was happening, at least we could have had something that said, okay, we can rule out all this. So let's help here. She never wanted to get me the proper help. She never wanted to deal with me.
Yeah,
And
it's
that was
interesting.
hard.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that was just hard.
Yeah, I mean, well, and that's like a classic thing, right? Because they're so wrapped up in themselves, so like so worried about, well, we can't get help because like that means something, that's a reflection on me, not a
Yes.
reflection on my child. Like let's not do what is best for my child, but like number one, that's a reflection on me. Number two, I don't want people to know what's going on in this house because it's not kosher, right? Like this is not like
Yeah,
what should be going on. And do you think that led to you dropping out of school early? Do you think that was
absolutely.
part of it?
Oh, I know it was 110% a part of it, because I couldn't, um, I felt stupid. I
Mhm.
felt like I couldn't keep up with the rest of my class. And I felt after that I was damned. I was
Mhm.
like the world's discard to humanity. My self-confidence was so low anyway, because even in the family, my mom, never installed in me that I was worth anything at all. I was just better off being there silent and do good. Take care of your brothers, take care of your sisters. I need to work. I need to do this. Well, you have a roof over your head, a bed to sleep in, and clothes on your back. That's what I do for you. That's what that was.
Yeah, that's classic narcissistic parent. Like
It's
it's fascinating when you look at it from that point of view because it's like it's very interesting to see how people can just like make everything about them.
yeah.
Like it's and it's hard because like for me, for instance, it was like everybody's problems, like my parents' problems were always far greater than my problems, right? So
Yes.
it's like they can't tend to you and your problems, which is like their job, their duty, because they're so wrapped up in their own problems. And I've noticed that like obviously it's trauma that help or that brings that about within them. And
Mhm.
so, but like my mom was so wrapped up in her own trauma, right, and her lack of healing, that it was like nothing was ever that big of a deal in regards to us. It was
Mhm.
always about her. So like, I mean, for me,
Yeah.
my mom, crazy. Like she had cheated on my dad, um, and called my dad over with this guy in bed with her, and there were 3 children there. Like, what do you think is going to happen? Like,
Yeah.
you don't think that my dad's going to lose his shit? And
Yeah.
like, complete disregard for the children that were there and these young children. And it was more about seeking attention or whatever she was going on in that brain of hers, um, all about her. And it's like so fascinating because I want to ask, do you notice that you have picked up, like that you picked up on narcissistic tendencies or traits throughout your life and have had to like maybe navigate that a little bit?
Absolutely, 110%. And I used to hate to admit it because it's not anything that I'm proud of, and it's actually one. There's many different areas in my life where I feel like I've picked it up.
Mhm.
Parenting is um, my earlier days in parenting before I realized anything, because I blindly went into parenting. I literally helped raise my siblings, other people's kids, because I was a babysitter for a community. I was just like
Mhm.
that person that hopped between all the children and watched all their kids while they went out for a night of drinking. And, it just, I raised kids since I was about 9, and then I
Mhm.
had my own. So I didn't have that downtime to be like, hey, all this shit's wrong. Um, so starting off my earlier years in parenting, I picked up on so many bad narcissistic traits.
Mhm.
And I'm still working those out with my children. I'm still trying to mend that with them. Like 2 weeks ago, I'll give you a great example. My 15-year-old daughter, she didn't do the dishes properly the first time. Like there was still food stuck on the vast majority of the dishes that were in that dish strainer. And I called her up there and I was like, these are still dirty and I'm pissed because we should know by now. You've been doing dishes for 3 years. We should know by now how to do the dishes correctly the first time so I don't have to get a dirty dish.
Mhm.
And I was like, you need to redo these dishes. Furthermore, you're not going to go to your friend's house this weekend. I'm done. And I walked away. She redone all the dishes and she came into my room and she was like, Mom, I think we need to talk. And I said, okay. And she was like, I don't like it when you use my friends as leverage. And of course, right away, I get pissed. I get pissed and defensive. And I'm like, you know what? I ain't got nothing else to use against you. So I guess if I'm going to have to use this, I guess I will. Maybe it'll turn it around a little bit. And she was like, whatever. She got up and walked away. The feeling didn't feel good. I didn't feel good as a parent. And I looked at it from a different angle. And I was like, I could never come to my mom and say, listen, I didn't like when you did this. And then
Mhm.
I looked at it from my daughter's angle and I was like, she didn't like that I used a friend as leverage. And I did. I used a friend, an outside source of stress relief for her as leverage. And she even told me, doing the dishes for the second day in a row really does me in, man. I hate doing dishes. We have an 8-person household with no dishwasher. We are the dishwashers. It
Mhm.
sucks. Um, so I messaged her because sometimes text for me is a little bit better. So I
Mhm.
communicate better with writing out. And I apologize. And I was like, listen, I'm sorry. I'm still learning too. And I will try harder next time not to utilize or use your friends as leverage for you, as punishment, because I know that your friends mean a lot to you. And I love you. And thank you for trusting me with your feelings. Thank you for coming to me and saying, hey, I feel. That means a lot to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still working out some really bad parenting traits that I've picked up. And I'm happy that I'm not even happy. I'm grateful that my children understand that I need that. I need you to challenge me and say, look at it from a different angle.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fascinating because I myself find, and I've worked on it a lot, but I find myself like, it was hard for me to admit, but that I did have some narcissistic tendencies. I was very self-centered
Mhm.
a lot of my life. And so it's so fascinating because I think the narcissistic tendencies of like making things about us because that's what we learned, but also like which is similar to self-centeredness, right? Like I believe that like for me at least I became so self-centered because when things start to happen to you as a child, you have to like rationalize it. Like there must be something wrong with me. So we like turn it around, we internalize it, like, because bad things aren't supposed to happen to us, right?
Mhm.
Like that's so if my parents are treating me a certain way or they're doing a certain thing, like there must be something wrong with me. Like if
Yes.
they're treating me that way, right? So we like
Mhm.
internalize it, we flip it on ourselves, and then
Yep.
on top of that, having the narcissistic parents, it's like I spent so much of my life like that everything would be turned around onto me. Like something was wrong with me. What did
Yep.
I do? And like you're just like constantly in this reflective state of what I've done, which then kind of perpetuates a little bit of a narcissistic mentality and a self-centered mentality because it was a coping mechanism to understand why these fucked up things were happening to us. And so for me, it was like that was a lot of source of pain for me. I realized like
Oh
a
yeah.
lot of source of pain that I caused myself by
Mhm.
believing that most things were like a reflection of me. I would always try to figure out what I did wrong in a relationship. If someone didn't treat me right, like
Yes.
I must have done something wrong. And so it's like, instead of like looking at it from a whole perspective, instead of looking at it from like a perspective of like, oh, like maybe that person had a bad day, or this is like a reflection of their mind, which it always is. It's always a reflection of what that
Mhm.
person has been through, their mind, their experiences, all that kind of stuff. And it's so fascinating because I really understand now, like, a lot of us that have experienced trauma, whether we're in a narcissistic household or not, we become self centered as self preservation.
Yes.
And that's hard to navigate, I would say. I mean, I don't yet have children, but I've also worked with children, right? I have my bachelor's degree in child and adolescent development. I was a nanny. And like, so I started to realize how I made things about me. And like, so if a kiddo was acting out, it was like I would get frustrated or like annoyed because of how it made me feel versus like looking at the kiddo and being like, what do you need right now? Like, clearly there's something going on with you. It has nothing to do with me. Like, let's be there for you. And obviously, I learned that as time went on. And I'm so thankful that I don't yet have children because I've learned a lot of this beforehand and I'm not passing it along. But it's like, I really do find this fascinating thing where it's like when we experience those traumas and then you layer it with this narcissistic household, it
Yep.
is it's a lot to even become aware of. And then like you said, like then you get pushback and you realize, oh shit, there I was again. And you
Yeah.
like have to deal with it. You have to like process it. It's almost like another layer of processing and then owning up to it. But it's really, I would say, the fact that your kiddos are able to come to you says a lot about the way that you have, navigated parenting.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm definitely proud of that because it's not always been that way.
Yeah.
Um, I like it. I mean, I was not the best parent starting out. I definitely, when my older kids were younger, there was a lot of, punishment, not abusive,
Hmm.
but definitely, why are you crying? Stop your crying right now. Like that, you don't need to cry. Like I really do. I just looking back, I don't like it. And I definitely just going forward, try to make it as easy as possible.
Yeah, well, I mean, you were a kid raising kids. So like that's part of it. Like you didn't know what
Yeah.
you didn't know, right? So like it's so
Yeah.
fascinating even if you know that it doesn't feel good, you still emulate the same behaviors. Like we still like a lot of the time it's like what you focus on, like I don't want to be my parents, I don't want to be my parents. You become your parents because like you don't really have any other focus point versus when you
Yeah.
see someone that's like a healthy parent and then you're
Yep.
like, oh, that's what it's supposed to be, and
Yes.
you focus on that.
Yeah. And it's funny you say you focus on you don't want to be your parent. That is still something that I try hard not to focus on. It's hard for me to even talk about myself. I do not like it. Um, just the other day I was doing a thing. I was working on something and it was like, give us, a bio. Tell us about yourself. I hate those things. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Um, because yes, I feel like I'm this amazing person. I've come to love myself, but I hate saying things about myself. It's hard for me to do that. I can't find words for other people. Um, and how to explain myself most times. I do not like to talk about myself. My mom is like all about herself, has always been about herself. It's always been about her. And I've hated that. I have hated that. And I still hate that about her. Um, so it's so hard to talk about myself. I can't even make a bio at this point. I can't, I'm in the process of learning, working my way through that. But man, my mom literally talks about herself on a constant, even now to this day, almost 60 years old. And there's no topic of conversation other than her, how hard she works, everything she's been through, everything she's done. And I'm just like, Mom, this is the same story for the past like 37 years I've been alive.
Mm-hmm.
So, how's your week? I know
Yeah.
about your life. I know about your life story. I know about your work because you just repeated that story at least 4 times in the past hour. You need friends, girlfriend. Like you need people. You need a support system. And I wish that she had that. I think that if she had a better support system and if she got herself help, if she got like, and this is not a new topic of conversation with her. My
Mm-hmm.
little sister is a therapist as well.
Mm-hmm.
She's made a great educational foundation for herself. I'm so proud of my little sister. Like she went against all odds, literally all odds to become a therapist. And she was actually one of my turning points. Like, Heather, these things aren't right. The things that we've learned, there's something not right. And so, and I just kind of picked up like, yeah, I feel it, but I didn't know it. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
trust my feeling because I was never allowed to trust my feelings. I had to go with whatever mom felt. Um, but yeah, like my mom has been told before, Mom, we really think that you would benefit from therapy. We think that you really got to do some work on yourself. And for her, she just doesn't see it. Um, she never has time. She never has time for much except for herself in all
Mm-hmm.
the wrong ways. It's so weird to me. I don't get it, but yeah, it's always been about her. I mean, I can remember a time when I was little that Child Protective Services got called because one of her boyfriends had abused me very badly. I had bruises all up and down my arms. He had punched me in my face. My lip was just swelled beyond belief. I had a mark around my neck from the internet cord. It was that scenario I talked about last week. And Child Protective Services got involved with that because the school noticed. I didn't even tell people. The school noticed that I was attending. And of course, Child Protective Services came out and my mom made it all about her and how hard she had to work that night and she didn't have a sitter and I had to stay with him and she's doing everything she can and she'll leave him. And she did. She had to by law, to keep her kids. And we moved in with my grandma and she was telling everybody about how she was going to leave his deadbeat ass and nobody comes between her and her kids, but she was seeing him on the side. Look, on the outside, she portrayed herself as this, and she still will. Oh, I did everything I could for my kids, and my kids always came first, but we did not come before men. None of us did. None of us did. And then when that relationship died out because of that situation, there was another guy. And then it just always was repetitive with her, but she was always the savior.
Yeah, that's how it kind of goes. It's so fascinating because it's like, of course, we're not going to get help because then you have to ditch the story that you've been telling yourself for so long and you have to confront what you've actually done. And that's actually like super painful. So most people will go through their lives attached to the story that they will tell themselves so that they don't have to face the reality of what is. And I think for sure narcissistic people do that. And like this, it's fascinating because I feel like they believe their stories. So it's not that they're lying per se, because they truly believe it in like their perspective. And it's so fascinating because my mom is passed, my biological father has passed, and I have my stepdad, and my stepdad is, again, pretty about him, but there's still some like compassion here and there, and but it's still like what he's been through. Like when my mom did pass away, like he wasn't there per se for us. It was about what he was feeling, and and which is interesting because they were separated and all of that. And so it is fascinating to see how it just perpetuates like this cycle, like it continues, and there's not really it's like, I don't think a lot of people get out of that cycle unless they seriously seek help and are willing to actually confront like their own behavior and really own up to it, which is really challenging. It's really challenging to own up to your behaviors, especially the things that you aren't proud of. And I would imagine when it comes to having children, it's like really hard to do that because then you have to reflect on the impact that you have actually had on their lives. And that's like,
that's the hardest.
Yeah, that's what I would say would be the hardest. And I think that's probably what keeps a lot of people from doing it, is because then you internalize that and you shame yourself and you have all these emotions. And so, like, as far as that goes, how do you feel like you deal and process out in your own space, like where you're processing that you've maybe had some of these tendencies with your own kids? How do you support yourself in those moments so that you're not like in a shame cycle and not continuing to perpetuate that?
I think what really helps me is the fact that my children try hard to understand me, my childhood. What helps is that they know that I am trying. It's not even that they know, they see that I am actively every day, every moment, every situation, I am trying. They see that. And so it makes it easier for me to say, I know that I wasn't always the best. And I understand that things that I've done in the past to you have been very hurtful. And I am so sorry. But they, they try to work with me. And that's, I think that if most parents knew how accepting their children are and how forgiving and resilient children are, if my mom came to me today, next hour, and said, listen, I want help. I know that I've not been the best for you, to you in your life, but I want help and I'm going to get help and I'm going to show you with action. I could forgive and I would help her along her journey until the day that I couldn't anyway. I would, because I think that in our hearts, biologically, we're always called to our biological parent. I think that in our hearts, we have a deep connection. Believe me, I don't want my mom to suffer like this forever. I love her from the deepest parts of my soul. I do not want this life for her, but I can't change it by any means. This is her choice. This is her life. And if this is how she would like our relationship, it's okay. I love her regardless. So the thing that helps me are my children and the fact that they are amazing humans. They are amazing humans that have um, helped me. We grow together.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, of course, I think every parent goes into parenthood feeling and wishing and hoping that they are the parent that is the best. And, we all fail in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, I failed in many. But, at the end of the day, my kids are just like, we love you. We support you. Thank you. Thank you for changing and actively trying. So they
Yeah.
make it easy for me.
Isn't that's such a huge point and such a fascinating point, because honestly, most people that I talk to, as like coaching or whatever, I mean, like I've been surrounded by people that have experienced trauma and a lot with their parents. And it's so fascinating because most people just say like they just wish their parents would own up to what they did and
Mm-hmm.
like just like apologize, just a sorry and own up to it, and then like they change behavior, right? And I
Yes.
think that that's so important, because I think you're right. Like most children are pretty forgiving
Mm-hmm.
if their parents are just like, hey, I fucked up. This is what I did. I'm sorry. And like, I'm here to do better. And
Yeah.
you actually have to take actions to, you know, that match those words. But it's very interesting because it's like something so little, something that almost every single person has in common that I speak to about this. It's like this acknowledging, just
Yep.
acknowledge what you have done in your behavior, take ownership of it, and then we could probably just move forward. Like as long as you change your behaviors, we could totally move forward. And like I think that that's so beautiful, because I think that could help parents who are listening, who have made mistakes, which we all are going to make mistakes, right? We're
Oh
humans.
yeah.
All parents are going to make mistakes. I didn't want to have children for a while because I was like, I know too much about child development, right? I've raised other people's children. I've
Mhm.
been through my own trauma. I don't want to fuck up my kids. And like, I don't want to do that. And then I like came to this realization, like, okay, well, I haven't done all of this work for nothing. Like I want to also provide a life for children that like I didn't have, and I'm gonna fuck up because I'm a human. And like already deciding like, of course I'm gonna fuck up. It's just obviously not to the degree that my parents did. And I will, work through those fuck ups. But I think what is so powerful too is like, if you are able to show your children, like, hey, this is what I did wrong. Like, I reacted in this way, or I did this and I am not proud of it and I'm sorry. And like, that's such a beautiful thing for them to see so that they can emulate that behavior. And so, like, with you taking ownership and like apologizing, even though you may like in the moment not feel like you are doing anything wrong, but like going back and then getting that welcome, that like welcoming love from your children. And I think, like you said, like most children will do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And my mom, there have been times where she was like, I'm sorry, I know that, I got some work to do. But there's been no changed behavior.
Which means nothing.
That's my roadblock I'm running in with her. And I need changed behavior before I can have that relationship.
Yeah, well, because words are empty at that point. Like,
Oh yeah.
Like it doesn't matter. So the apology itself, I think, is just what most people want so that they can get like I'm not crazy. Like, okay, there was things fucked up, but the most important part is that changed behavior. And so if you just apologize and then don't change behavior, like I remember I don't know, it could have even been my parents. I can't even remember, like, but I would say, I'm sorry. And they're like, no, you're not. You're not sorry because you're not changing your behavior. Like, no, you're not.
It drive me nuts. Yeah.
And it's like, no, I'm sorry. But it's like, and I think that was like, you're not sorry because you're not changing your behavior. And it's like, but there's so much truth to that, right? Like, you're not that sorry if you're not changing your behavior. And it's like, well, oh shit, okay. Because if I was genuinely sorry, like, then I would change my behavior. And I used to do that. Like, I used to give the sorries, but not change the behavior. And it was like,
yes,
so bad. Like that. I mean, it's just not helpful. It's not useful.
I think that was one of my big turning points because my oldest son, my oldest child, he's 18 now, but he came to me with that. I think he was about 14, 15, and he was like, Mom, you always say you're sorry for yelling, but you don't ever change. That was like, holy shit. That's what I always felt about my mom. And I don't want to be that. I still yell. I still have my tendencies, but I have actively since then, so it's been about 4 years, I have actively tried hard to not yell, not to just jump to yelling, and just talking it out and, doing it in a healthier manner. But yeah, change behavior is huge, huge. But children, they are so forgiving and they're just amazing. I wish that adults, before we become so jaded, could go back to that childlike sense, and that we would all be happier.
Yeah.
We would all be happier and more forgiving.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I mean, it's a heavy topic, especially when it comes to, like, yes, it's heavy when you experience it, but I think the heaviest, like, even more so, is like the heaviness comes from doing it and then dealing with the fact that you've done it, right? Like, because it's the emphasis on like how bad you felt when it was done to you, right? And then so that's where it's like, it's so important to not shame yourself for doing it, because then it just perpetuates the cycle and you keep doing it when you like start coming down on yourself. And I feel like because I did that for a while too. Like when I started to realize like some of my behaviors that I really did not like in my parents that I was displaying, it's like you come down on yourself like really hard. And I realized then that just like put me in the same spiral, and it was hard
Yeah.
for me to get out of it. And it's like I love this idea of I just didn't know. Like I love to add that to anything of like I just didn't know, and now I know, so I can like move forward and I can do my best to change things, because I think um we do emulate behaviors even if we don't like the behaviors. We emulate them because that's what we've learned. And I think that like that's probably the hardest thing. And I think that's what our parents end up doing, right? Because like I'm sure your mom talked about her parents in a way where it's like, wait, but that's you. Like that's
Yep.
what you do. And so that's why it's like this sick cycle and this
Yeah.
sick shame cycle. And like you start blaming yourself and internalizing it, and which perpetuates, and you just keep doing it. And so that's why I really like think it's so helpful to be that little sentiment of I just didn't know, so that you can allow yourself some grace to move into something new. Because if you just beat yourself up over it, like if you every time you yell, you're like coming down on yourself, you're going to yell more because you feel
Mm-hmm.
like shit. So,
Yeah.
and it has nothing to do with your kids, right? Your kids could
Mhm.
be doing nothing wrong, but you're still going to yell because you have this internal dialogue about how shitty of a parent you are for yelling and all this
Yeah.
stuff. And like that just perpetuates the behaviors that you don't want to do.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. Um, for me, I'm just like, I got to catch myself. And I always just kind of, I do have my moments where I go into my own loop. I do go into a loop, but I got to catch it. I got to catch it. And then, when you do an awesome parenting win, celebrate it.
Mm-hmm.
That's my biggest thing. Like yesterday, I had a parenting celebration for myself. And it's not like you gotta do anything huge. You just celebrate it within yourself. Like, oh
Mm-hmm.
my God, that wouldn't have happened when I was a little girl.
Mm-hmm.
That wouldn't have happened with me being the parent I was 4 years ago. I am proud of that. Yesterday, my 10-year-old, bless his little heart, he was trying to help with laundry. We have a brand new washer and dryer. It was very expensive, at least for our family. It's
Mm-hmm.
expensive. And I told him deliberately, like, get an adult before you do anything with that washer and dryer, or an older kid to help you with this, because you don't know, the stuff on the washer and dryer. This poor kid thought that the spin cycle, there was something wrong with the washer. No, it was just that there was heavy shit in there and it was making loud noises. He stops the spin cycle. There's tons of water in the washer still. He's wringing the clothes out, he said, on the back porch.
Oh.
He threw them in the dryer, still soaking wet. The dryer was flooded. And he starts the dryer with all these wet ass clothes in it, and the dryer is flooding all over the floor. And he's like, Mom, I got to tell you something, and I'm freaking out right now, and I don't know what I just done. And of course, my initial reaction was, oh my God, like these are $6,000. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's, these are brand new. I told you to get an adult. I told you to get an older kid. What the hell? And he's like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And I'm like, it's okay. This is fixable. I understand you were just trying to help. Don't freak out. Give me a hug. I'll show you how this is done, and I'll show you why this happened. The
Mm-hmm.
washer wasn't broke, it was just on spin cycle.
Mm-hmm.
But I was proud of that. Like, yes, I almost freaked out. I was almost at a shit mood, where I could have made a teaching opportunity for him really bad.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't. I didn't. And so I celebrated that within myself.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I teach people that like you have to celebrate your wins because it's like a kid, right? It's positive
Yes.
reinforcement. So when you tell them like what you want to see and you reinforce that behavior, they are going to do more of that. And so
Hmm.
it's the same with ourselves. When we celebrate our wins and we, give ourselves like, yeah, like I'm proud of you. I'm proud of the way that you showed up in that situation. The likelihood is you are going to show up again like that, and you're rewarding yourself, right, by telling yourself like good job. And in a
Yeah.
sense you're reparenting yourself at that time, right? Like you're
Yes.
reparenting yourself, you are learning new behaviors, you're seeing how good it feels on your end to not get all fucking frazzled and yell and get mad. You're seeing how your kid is responding and is learning and is like, okay, it's safe to come to mom and tell her that there's a problem.
Yeah.
And maybe this is why mom said get an adult or an older kid
Yeah.
before, versus like yelling and saying what he did wrong and all that, which you could have done, right? And
Yeah.
that could have been an option. But I think that's the thing, is celebrating those wins will continue to move forward in any sort of change that you're trying to make. And I really, really, really love that you do that. And I think that like that is like words of wisdom to anyone making any changes in their life. Constantly celebrate your wins, because we're so focused on like the end goal of like becoming like
Yeah.
the perfect parent or losing weight or whatever. And it's like, no, make like celebrate the win that you made a healthy choice for food. Celebrate the win that
Mhm.
you like didn't yell when you wanted to yell. Like celebrate those wins. And then eventually you're just going to reach this point where you're like, oh shit. Like
Yes.
I haven't yelled in a long time. And like, oh, I'm actually like showing up in this way, or oh shit, I just lost weight or whatever it is. And you're going to get to that goal, but you're not going to get there as smoothly and you're not going to get there as quickly if you don't celebrate those wins. So like,
And you're not going to
especially,
get there if you're in a constant trauma loop either.
no,
You're
you
just, you're
definitely,
not, you got to understand and give yourself grace, understand that you are human and we're having human experiences. We are not perfect. We are
right.
not perfect. So by celebrating every time that you have a win, you're going to like that feeling better. You're going to love
Yes,
it a lot better. And then you're going to want to keep doing that versus going back to old narratives that don't feel
absolutely.
good, that
And
just
you
don't
will
feel
go
good.
back, and you
You
will go
will.
back, and you will catch yourself. And that's when you're like, oh, this is why I don't want to be doing this.
Yep.
Like, that's like the other thing is, I think it's so important for people to know, like, yeah, the thing that you're changing, you're going to fucking go back and you're going to be like, oh shit, this is why. Those are your reminders.
Yeah.
Those are what I call gentle reminders of why you're doing the work that you're doing. And I think
Yeah.
like the overall kind of theme of this whole hour that we've spent is like taking ownership, right? Like taking ownership of what you want to change and who you want to be, and allowing yourself that opportunity to change. Because like, yes, we grew up in narcissistic households, and yes, we did learn narcissistic tendencies. Like, I think that's so important. If you have a parent and you have a laundry list of shit that you don't like about them, you
Hmm.
better start doing some internal checking and start
Absolutely.
seeing where you are displaying those behaviors if you want to change. Otherwise, you will
Yep.
become that parent. And I think that that's like, and that's like, and so empowering to me. Like, yeah, like, is it hard? Is it hard to like look at those things that you really don't like about your parent and see them in you? It is. It sucks. It fucking sucks, because you're like, that's what I didn't want to become. But that awareness allows you to start changing and become better. And it's never too late. Like, that's the other
Hmm.
theme, is like, it's never too late, because like, look at you, you're sitting here saying your mom is like in her 60s. And like, if she just came to you and said like, I'm sorry, this is what I've been doing, and changes behaviors, you'd be like, all right, cool, let's fucking go. And
Absolutely.
So it's like you have an 18-year-old and it wasn't too late at 14 to start the whole, I'm not going to keep yelling. Like it's never
Yep.
too late. And then you have 5 other children that get to benefit from that. Like, and I
Yeah.
think that's amazing.
And it's not just them. Think about long term. Think about long term, generational. Think
Oh,
about
yeah.
that. I could be teaching them skills for their children. And then not only that, when the time comes, believe me, I'm not in no rush, but when I do have grandchildren,
Mm-hmm.
I can be better for them so that they could be better for their children. Like think of the generation that we're going to raise.
100%. Like
I'm so happy for that.
it's cutting generational cycles.
Yep.
I don't know if there is like, I literally just got chills when I said that because I don't think that there's fucking anything better in this world than
Yes.
cutting generational cycles that have just been there for so fucking long. And like,
Yeah.
we get to do that. We get to do that. We
Hmm.
can be the one person, one human that cuts a whole generational cycle. Like you
Yes.
could be going back 100 fucking years.
Yep.
And what, like, to me, that just fucking charges me up. It's like, okay, let's
Absolutely.
go. Let's
Yeah.
go. And then let's change the next 100 years. Like
Yes.
I literally like, I take pride in the fact that I have done for myself what my mom tried her whole entire life to do.
Hmm.
Like I've done it for both of us and her mom and like all of it. You know what I mean? Like it's like, oh my goodness. And I think that that's like, I try to look at everything from like a sitting in your power and an empowering standpoint. And I think there's nothing more empowering than like cutting generational cycles and breaking them and just like showing up for ourselves and being everything that our parents couldn't be.
Yeah. You did it, girlfriend.
So are you're doing it. We
Yeah.
are doing it. Like it's like amazing. I think we should give
It is.
ourselves a round of applause. Like look at us go. Right? And celebrating these wins, and we have a long road to go still. And we're
Yes.
going to keep going
Hmm. Every day. Every
every
day.
day. It's a choice every day. That's what I tell people.
Absolutely.
Every day, all day.
Absolutely. And some
Every
days
day,
it's
all
just going to
day.
be harder. Some
Yeah,
days it's going to go smooth, but every day, as long as you try, take
absolutely.
accountability, keep trying, stay encouraged, keep going.
I love it. I love it. And I feel like that's like such a good note to end on. And then,
It is.
of course, let's talk about what are we going to name this episode?
Um, breaking the generational curse.
Breaking the generational curse. I love it. I think that's amazing. Breaking the
Yeah.
generational curse. I am on board. And I think that that is what a breath of fresh air.
Yes. What self-care are you doing today?
I have another podcast to do. I am going to take a nap. I am
Yay.
doing a 3-day reboot, gut reboot. So I'm doing like
I've
a
seen that.
detox. Yeah. So I am going to just,
Oh.
I think, be really loving and kind and allow myself to rest today after doing lots of conversation yesterday and today. So, and probably go for a nice walk this evening. I think that will be really nice. So that's what I am going to do. What about you? What self-care are you going to do?
I am going to get my mani and pedi done. And then, and of course, I go by myself. It's luxurious for me just because
Mhm.
I get my earbuds, I have my jams going, I do the thing. I love it. Love it. And then after that, I'll probably come home and nap. And after that, I'll probably clean. That's
Yeah,
comfort for me. That's
I
purging is amazing.
love it too. I love that.
Yes. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Good. Well, Thank you. Thank you. Thank you again for your presence, your honesty, your willingness to share and be vulnerable and
Yeah.
share your wins and inspire others. It is always a pleasure. And I am so glad that we had this conversation because I think it's going to help so many people. I think it's something that we need to talk about. And I just want to say, I honor the fact that you are willing to own up to your own behavior so that you can break the cycles. And I also want to say thank you for breaking those cycles because every time that we do that, we are making the world a better place, even if it's just our immediate world, which your immediate world is big. And so that's going to trickle down into so many other people. And so thank you for being you and sharing again with me.
Thank you, honey. Until next time.
Until next time, have a
Thank
good rest of
you.
your day.